We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime. Holy!
Welcome to another edition of Unsportsmanlike Conduct here on the Sports Box. I love that intro. It actually gets you fired up now.
We pumped it up a little bit.
Yeah, a little adrenaline on that one, and I like it. So, as always, Paul Macrie here alongside Big V, Mike Velardi here on this Monday evening. What's going on, Big V?
What's going on? They're ready to talk some sports here.
Absolutely. As always, obviously, finally, and I know we had a show on Thursday night right after the Wentz news broke. He did get traded finally after all the talk over the last couple of weeks. He gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, the Eagles, as we already know and everybody knows, they get 2 draft picks. One of them could be a first-round pick in 2022, depending on the amount of time he plays, percentages, and obviously there's a plus stipulation in there as well. So I guess we'll get into some final thoughts on that. Also, MLB spring training just getting underway, so we'll talk about some MLB news and notes. The games itself, as far as spring training games, don't start till Sunday, but there are a couple of free agents that just signed this past week. A couple that are still surprisingly still out there. We'll talk about that, along with the Flyers just getting back into action after their COVID pause and 2 games and their 1 overtime or shootout loss, and then the blowout loss last night in Lake Tahoe against the Bruins. And then basketball as well. We'll get into a little bit of that with the Sixers still in first in the East, but just hanging on for dear life as the Nets had a tremendous West Coast trip, and now they are only a half game out of first. So first, Mike, well, I know you want to get into our newest sponsor. We're really happy to have them on board.
Yes.
So give them a shout out here before we get started.
Yeah, Showcase Sports in Hamilton is our new sponsor for all of our shows on the Sports Box. We want to give them a nice shout. You can visit them on 12th Street in Hamilton, across from the Wawa. Go see them. They'll hook you up with all the latest apparel, gloves, bats, spikes, whatever you need. Check them out. Nicole, Ronnie, and the crew over there treat you very well.
Yes, absolutely. So great to have them as our sponsor now. And we'll get into. I know we got one comment. We'll address that in a little bit, but I want to get into the. So, what's your final thoughts here on Wentz out of town now? And we'll see. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean Jalen Hurts is the guy, but at the moment he is QB1. At the moment,
well, they
could still draft one, obviously, in a couple of months, but.
I don't know. I mean, listen, I think – I mean, I don't know where they're going to be. Obviously, I'm just taking a guess on this. I honestly think that they give him a shot this year to prove himself. He's still on his rookie deal, whatever the case is. They got him in the second round. I just think that they have more needs than to draft a quarterback. Although 1 or 2 good ones might slide to you and you have that option to take one, I just think that there's more needs at this point. Like people are saying, and I agree with most of them. If you don't take a quarterback and Hurts sucks this year, you're going to stink anyway. Pick a quarterback next year. There's going to be plenty. Sam Howell, a bunch of guys are coming out. You never know. I just think that there's multiple needs other than a quarterback right now that they need to get better with.
Yeah, I mean, you could really
the only surefire hit is Lawrence, right at 1. You would have to think.
Well, yeah, and Zach Wilson's already getting a lot of hype out of BYU. I mean, we'll see. He's going to be in that. He's going to be the second quarterback. It looks like right now, and Justin Fields the third. And we'll see. Mac Jones down the line and a couple of those guys. But I think right now, I know you mentioned Sam Howell next year, and a couple other quarterbacks, maybe JT Daniels. I think he would be eligible next year. We're just thinking a couple off the top of my head. But I think right now, if you look at it, the Eagles, what they are dealing with 2021, as you said, they're most likely not going to be a good team this year. We know that.
Yep.
So do you see what Jalen Hurts has? I mean, you did take him in the second round. Do you still see what he has for a full season? Showcase him. And then we'll play it by ear for 2020, going into 2022, obviously next off season.
Listen, they're not going to win this year. They're not going to win this year. So I think let's say they do draft somebody. Okay. Then what does that say? Now you have another quarterback controversy technically, and you're not going to be good anyway. So you know what I mean? Why put yourself in that position where you're going to have two people that aren't going to be, they're going to be competing for the job. Let's say they do draft Zach Wilson, number 6. Okay. So let's say he sits for 6, 7, 8 games, and then Hurts stinks. He has to come in. Then what do you have? Now you have Hurts is unhappy. Like you're almost in the same situation you were just in without the money attached to it.
Well, we know this for sure. They're going to have to bring in a veteran quarterback, that mentor / backup option.
How about Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I mean, I would like him, but I think he stays in Miami. I mean, who knows what that situation with Tua is still there, obviously, and they could even draft a quarterback. I mean, they don't seem to be fully convinced that Tua is the guy. But to go back to, you have Jacoby Brissett, maybe, just came over. Just obviously, Sirianni's 2 years in Indianapolis.
True.
Knows him well. Tyrod Taylor at his time at the Chargers.
Yeah.
As well. So you have two guys, veteran quarterback guys that are, solid backup quarterbacks. And I think would be, good for, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I think the days of, the
Jacobs agrees with me.
What's it? He's just saying that. I don't know what he's.
Not to cut you off, but Henry says, so if Carson Wentz can't have jersey number 11 like he intended, which number would best fit him? I know him and Michael Pittman apparently had a call yesterday or today, and he said that he's not giving up number 11. And Wentz kind of said, well, I think I'm due for a change anyway.
Yeah, fresh start number. That's fine with it.
So what was he at North Dakota State?
Because I don't know if he was 11. I think he was 11 too, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But he probably, I could see him going.
He was 11. He was number 11.
Yeah, I could just see him at this point going with a fresh start number. There in
Indianapolis. He goes to number 12, Andrew Luck's number.
That would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, at this point, as far as the compensation went as well. Third round pick, you get 2 third round picks now, so that's nice. Because I always thought that second and third round picks are very important. You got to hit on those picks. I mean, obviously the first round pick is obviously important too. We know that, especially when you have the 6th overall. But I really think that second day is very pivotal as well. And the Eagles have been hit or miss with those second day picks lately. So I would like to see them now with some of those extra picks, and we'll see what happens. And is a good chance that first round that pick in 2022 becomes a first round pick, because you have to think, as long as he stays healthy, and he was able to stay healthy this year, despite how bad he was, he just got benched.
Right.
But he didn't get, he didn't not play the last 4 games because he was injured.
Exactly.
So, can he play 75% of the snaps? I think it's still a very attainable, number to reach. And, can they make the playoffs? Yeah, obviously that roster is playoff ready. They made the playoffs this past year and very well could have beat Buffalo in that first round game. So I think it's obviously not the most ideal, just considering you drafted this guy number 2 overall and did all of that 5 years ago to get to this point. But the leverage was not obviously at its highest. And, they knew that basically the Eagles needed an out because there was really a point of no return. And that's just basically what happened. And, here we are. And Wentz gets his fresh start, and the Eagles.
I think the dominoes are falling now. Okay, the only way I think Howie Roseman survives this, which I don't know how he has already, they're going to do their due diligence in cutting the guys they should cut, the older players they should cut. Listen, they're no stranger to cutting guys like Brian Dawkins and the veterans and letting go of Malcolm Jenkins, stuff like that. They'll do it, and they're going to have to do it to save money. They already got rid of D-Jack, Alshon and Malik Jack are going to be. Yeah, but those two are going to be next. I'm also hearing Ertz could be traded rather than let go. Even if they get a 6th or a 7th for him, they're going to try and do something for him. I'm also hearing other guys. I'm hearing Kelsey. They could either trade him, and they're saying that the Kansas City Chiefs or need a center, and he will go play with his brother and Andy Reid.
Of course.
So listen, you're not going to get a lot for these guys just because of their age, But it's all about clearing cap space at this point because they got to get under it still, under the 180 million threshold.
Yeah, listen, cap's going down, and they're way up.
I read a good article today, and it told me how much they would save if they cut or traded. Like Kelsey, they would save like $7 or $8 million if they traded him rather than cut him. Okay. But they're still gonna save the money. Ertz, I think, is just a lost cause. I think that they're gonna try and get something for him, whether it's one pick, something.
Ertz is.
They're talking about trading Darius Slay, talking about trading him possibly.
Yeah,
anything that they could do to get money and get under the cap, they're gonna have to try and do. All players are open right now.
Seems like
the way it is.
I was going to say, I wouldn't even deny. Fletcher Cox got a very high cap number right now.
Him too.
Brandon Graham, I would not even be surprised.
I think a guy like Brandon Graham restructures, though. I think he
wants to end his career.
Yeah, right. Even though he's a little bit older, I don't know if a guy like that will want to go play somewhere else. I think he's married to this organization.
Yeah.
Other guys like Slay, they can try and trade, or Ertz still has enough time to play. Not that Brandon's on the back end of his career, but he's getting old enough where
he's 33
he's not
now.
Going to find another contract somewhere, most likely.
Yeah, you're right. It's at this point it is a rebuild year. That we know it is, and they're not adding play. They're going to add some just because they're obviously you talked about the backup quarterback. They're going to have to bring one in.
Oh yeah,
and I could see them maybe bringing in a veteran receiver, T.Y. Hilton maybe or somebody like that. I don't know. Just connections with Sirianni. That's all I'm thinking. But for the most part,
a good point as far as restructuring. What I mean is he is a guy that I could see taking less money. I shouldn't have said restructured. Taking less money to possibly rework his 1 year left so they can get under the cap is what I meant.
Yeah. Yeah, and Fletcher Cox has it's like a $20 million cap hit, I think, with him. So that's a lot. So I just think right now it's and I saw Slay's numbers like 16 million, 17 million. Not this year. I still think is like around 12, but I think it's like 16 and 17 the next 2 years. So what are you doing with a player like that if you're not planning on being a real competitive team?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I could see them, trying to get a 3rd or 4th round pick. Maybe, they gave up 2 draft picks to get him last offseason, a 3rd and a 5th, and re-signed them. So, I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
Like I said, you have to take the blinders off right now, especially if you're an Eagles fan, and you got to say to yourself, listen, a guy like Fletcher Cox, yes, good, making a ton of money, he's got to go. You know what I mean? At this point, it's almost like the good guys that you have, it's time to sell off and try to get something for them. But they're making so much money, it's like, you know what I mean? It's hard to move them and try and get a pick for them when they're making that much money for another team to take on the money. And Blair says there's 0% chance of the Eagles compete. We know they're not going to be competitive this year. That's why the fire sale is going to start. You have to regroup.
Yeah, they got to regroup.
And to Brian's point, Atard's point, the confidence level, I don't have a good confidence level in their picks. But if they pull a Patriots thing and trade off a lot of guys or get a lot of picks, because the Patriots always have a lot of picks, or an organization like that, you have to hit on them. You have to hit on them. You can't. Every year we sit here as Eagles fans. Oh, Darius Slay, we got him in a trade. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be great. Our DBs suck every year, including the good ones that we get. They're not. They're nobody's good. The year they got Javon Curse, and they got all these. They're trying to buy these expensive free agents, and they never turn out to be what you think they're going to be. You have to build through the draft.
Yeah, I mean, just because the Eagles have had a poor recent history of draft picks doesn't mean you still want that draft capital. And as you said, they have 4 picks in the top 100. You and I would not be opposed to trading down at number 6 if you don't like what you see there. Try to get more picks. Maybe try to get another pick for next year. These next 2 years are the years that they're going to have to rebuild. I'm not saying 2022 is going to be a wash as well, because they'll be out of hopefully the cap hell by that point. But it really right now they need to get younger. We've seen this coming since the Super Bowl, where they've hung on to these veteran guys a little bit too long, and aren't replenishing themselves through the draft. We talk about baseball, about our farm systems important. Well, yeah, obviously in football it's not quite a farm system, but you still need young guys to replenish and not just always rely on those free agent signings or those trades. Yeah, Howie for a while did very well in the free agent trade aspect of it all. They won the Super Bowl in 2017 because of the great free agent trade period he had that offseason going into it. It wasn't because of the draft. 2017 draft was not a good draft for them either, the draft that was in Philly. So it had nothing to do with why they won the Super Bowl. So at this point, I think it's about, they have to do it the right way now. And I know it sucks because, in this kind of market, it's not easy to sell to this fan base to rebuild. But I think you have enough intelligent fans to understand that they have to do it this way. And even in an NFC East that's still weak, who cares about just winning division, as Brian Attard likes to say, and we have to agree. Who cares about the 9-10 win seasons and win, clinching the division
for this team?
If you're going to lose a first round game like they've done, they did 2 years ago when they made the playoff was a waste of time because they weren't good enough to go far, and they lost to Seattle in the first round. So
I understand Kirk was 10 years ago. I'm trying to make the point of you can't buy the most expensive free agents and try to win like that. You have to win through the draft. I do know that. Yes. Yeah.
John Runyon was a free agent signing. Very good one. I mean, they've had good ones.
There has been good ones.
Yeah.
But Lane Johnson was a draft pick.
Yeah.
We could start with him being the 4th overall pick.
Right.
That year that was drafted. They hit on that one. But Howie's record of hitting on drafts is not very good.
Yeah, and that year they won the Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, they had Patrick Robinson was a nice signing, LeGarrette Blount, Chris Long. Guys like that were good glue guys. It was good for that 1 year, and everything just clicked. You had a career year from Wentz, and just everything went the right way. And a backup quarterback that you could never imagine did what he did. So, I mean, everything just hung right. And listen, we're not complaining about that one Super Bowl, obviously, but right now it's just that one, and who knows when there's going to be another even chance at another one, let alone win one. So that's right now what we're dealing with here, in this area. So, but a lot of time, the new league year doesn't start for another 3 weeks, I believe. So it's like mid-March. So really, as far as the real talk with free agency and whatever else the Eagles do. I mean, they already are in the news with the trade last week, and they're going to release, Deshaun Jackson, Malik Jackson, and Alshon Jeffrey when that becomes official and allowed to do when the new league year begins. But for now, it's kind of just a lot of speculation. Franchise tag opportunity, I believe, starts this week for some of the teams that have guys that are worth franchise tagging.
Honestly, I think Kelsey's not going to want to stay here through a, quote unquote rebuild. I think he's either going to retire or move on somewhere where he could win one more time, possibly. That'll save money in the process.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's a shame, but I would say that right now you're probably looking at a 50-50 proposition on him, whether he comes back or not. And I guess retirement's out of the picture. I mean, it seems like the last 3 years it's always been like contemplating retirement,
right?
But who knows right now with him? Ertz is as good as gone, and we'll see about the others at this point. But you wanted to talk about Flyers and what happened. They just got back from the COVID pause. They lost a shootout to the Rangers last Thursday, which was a nice effort to actually tie the game very late to force overtime and go into the shootout. But we always know when it comes to the skills competitions, the Flyers lose about 8 out of 10 times. So that's just the way it is. And then last night in Lake Tahoe, without 6 of their at least starting lineup guys, I'm not saying they're all key guys, they once again lost to Boston for the 5th time this season. They're 0-3-2 now against Bruins. I believe 3 of their 4 regulation losses have come against them. That's the way it is. I didn't think they were going to win last night, but obviously things got out of hand in that second period. So I didn't even watch the third period.
3 goals in 99 seconds is it's not very good.
Yeah, and I guess the first goal, what they scored the first period, they scored like a minute in, not even in the first period. I don't know if that had anything to do with the sun was brutal in that first period until that sun finally went down. I don't know if that had anything to do with Hart not seeing the puck, but obviously we talked about it before the show. Carter Hart hasn't played that good so far this year. He's been a little bit shaky. He's certainly going to have to step up. I know he faces a lot of shots. I understand the stat, and we're just going to bring it up now because I know one of the comments right out of the gate was the Flyers have the least shots for as far as offensive attack in the league, or second least, and they've given up the most. So that's not an easy equation to be very successful. I know they've actually 8-4-3 at this point of the season is not terrible. It's pretty solid considering that stat, but they're going to have to improve a little bit both ways. If they're going to be a little more successful. They got the Rangers later this week, I believe Wednesday, and then they got Buffalo back-to-back games this weekend in Buffalo. So, we'll see how things shape. But Boston looks very strong right now. I mean, they look like right now, the team to beat in the East. I know Tampa obviously is the defending Cup champs. They'll still be in the mix. Washington, I don't know. Washington probably, once again, they'll be in the mix. We know that. Out west, it looks like it's Colorado, Vegas, and obviously a few other teams. That first Lake Tahoe game the other night, talk about a disaster that was. They were banking on clouds, and then the sun did come out, and they couldn't maintain the ice, and they had to wait until the sun went down.
Right.
They didn't play again until 6 or 7 hours later. They played at midnight our time. Yeah. 9 o'clock there, and Colorado ended up winning that game 3-2, I believe it was. So, so they had 2 outdoor games in a very unique setting, basically like on a golf course, right? Isn't that like where they're? Yeah. So I mean, no fans, obviously, as we know. It was cool. The setting was cool. Obviously, the game itself sucked, but So. At least from a Flyers perspective, I know Bruins fans got to be pretty happy. I mean, their team is that's a really good team. Pasternak, what's the numbers for Pasternak over his last 82? Like, what would be a full
filthy?
He's averaging like 1.5 a game over like the last 82 games or something. So I
mean, Marchand, him, Bergeron, they got a really tough top 6. I mean, it's hard to not say they're one of the best teams in the East. I mean. Even their
young D. I mean, they let Chara go after a long career he had in Boston, and now he's with Washington. But Charlie McAvoy is very good. They got another really good young defenseman too. I can't think of his name right now.
They always find a way to regroup and get their guys. Tuukka Rask. I mean, he hasn't been great of late, but he hasn't been his form of old, but. Was it him and Halak, right? Is a backup, I
believe
believe.
Halak's a backup still.
It's a good backup. He could be a starter in the league. So, listen, Flyers, I know they were out without Voracek, I believe, Giroux, a bunch of their guys, but, it's like you go out there and you want to play well. But, Blair's right. Staying healthy is their crutch.
Konechny hasn't played either, right?
We'll throw this up, Eric, because I know Brian T probably has been saying this for a while. Is it safe to say the Flyers are overrated?
Well, what did you rate them as to start the season? I mean, I felt like they were at least.
I thought they were a playoff team.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, the top four have to make it out of that, realigned division. I thought they were one of the top four teams, and what are they, third right now? I guess
that realigned division is a tough division, though.
Yeah, it certainly is. I don't know. Some regarded them as a cup contender. I don't know if they're quite there. They're like kind of like they can win. They can win a round or two potentially, but I don't know if it's much more than that. I just think right now the style that they're playing, it's questionable whether or not that could be sustainable at this point. And I don't know if there is what we saw last year in the playoffs in that Islander series. Yeah, they went all 7 games, but it just seemed like it was such a, at times, one-sided series where the Islanders dominated them for long stretches. I think it was actually a miracle that that series went 7 games. But you saw some things last year that worried you about, puck possession time was not in their, clearly not in their favor. And Atari can let me know right now if I don't know what I'm talking about. But, also, the goaltending at times was shaky. So, it's been interesting to say the least as far as their style and all that.
Yeah, I agree. It almost seems like the same story every year, and it's just as a Flyers fan, you get tired of it. You say they're 1 or 2 players away. Not much is really done in the off season to try to make it better. They do have a lot of young talent, but it just seems like it's the same thing. Now they have the goalie. You think they do, and he's going through a terrible slump right now. Can't really stop a beach ball. No, it's tough. You got no fans in the building for them to live. For them to get a little bit of motivation and excitement. It just seems like, they're playing dead right now.
Yep. So we'll see how the, things go. Obviously they got to get a little bit healthier, and then we'll see. I guess we can reevaluate after they get healthy. So
I wonder what Brian T is going to say about this. Yeah. Brian T's answer is he's a bottom 5 coach.
Nah, I think he's top 10. I don't know about top 5. Very solid coach. Obviously, he's never won a cup. Been there twice, Vancouver and Rangers, and lost. But, I'd say top 10.
Safely. There it is.
Come on, Brian. He's top 10 in the league.
He just,
I don't know. Hockey's famous for, you have one bad stretch for like, half a season and they'll fire. You'll get, the coach gets fired. So who knows? Hockey, you're never safe, regardless of your resume, it seems like. Yeah. But didn't Laviolette get fired mid-season that one year?
Yeah.
After all the success
they probably
he had?
regret that. Doing that, but then they bring Haxtell in right after him, and that was
for the rest of that year. Berube was the head coach, if I don't remember.
And that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was like 14.
Yeah,
or 2015, and then Haxtell took over that 2016, I believe, or late 2015, 2016, I think it was. And then But then Haxtell got fired mid-season.
Got a Sixers chimer.
Yeah. See, basketball is big on who cares about the divisions. It's just about the conference. I don't even know who's in the division. Brooklyn's in the division. At the moment, I don't know. I mean, listen, Brooklyn had a hell of a road trip out west where they won all 5 games, beat the LA teams back-to-back games. all of a sudden it looks like they're very good defensively. I don't know if that's sustainable. I mean, they went from giving up like 114 points a game to this. Durant's been out for what? He was out the whole road trip.
I think
and
so,
he's still going to be out. It looks like a little bit longer. But for right now, Harden's playing well. He's actually D'ing it up a little bit. And it looks like they got a good rotation. I still think that style and that small ball, I don't know if that's sustainable for over like a long playoff run. I would still think they would like to have somebody, at least like a guy off the bench that that can give him a little more rebounding and a guy that can, give you a little more of an interior presence. DeMarcus Cousins is now available. I saw he got let go by Houston. So, so that is what it is, right there. I'd say at the moment, the Sixers are only half game up in the top spot in the Eastern Conference. With the Nets playing so well now. I would have to say at the moment, at least things are trending in the Nets' favor a little bit over the Sixers. So we'll see. But still a long season. I mean, it's not even halfway through. The second half of the schedule hasn't even been released yet. So it's I think it would be easier to evaluate this in another month or a month and a half, when we get a little bit more into the season. The Bucks have been up and down all season. It seems like at this point they're third in the East. Boston's struggling. So
Boston, I read a stat, they're giving up 120 points.
Who, Boston?
I think because Marcus Smart's not even playing. They're just trying to outscore teams at this point.
Yeah, they blew a big lead yesterday against the Pelicans.
Like 25-point lead.
Yeah, they lost in overtime.
That's bad.
Yeah, they're not playing good right now. I guess Smart is obviously, we know he's very, very good two-way player, but they seem to always lack like that interior presence as well. Like their starting center is Tristan Thompson, I think, right now.
Yep.
And they just kind of rotate when it comes to that. So bless you there.
Thank you.
All right, we got an antsy person here who wants to talk about the Phillies now, Chris Wilson, and we'll get into that.
Antsy person.
We'll get into the MLB spring training underway. It did start last week. So far, a couple of relievers got signed. It seemed like that reliever market, you really could go bargain shopping with the relievers. Trevor Rosenthal got signed by Oakland. Ends up being it ends up being a 1 year, $11 million deal, but it's like two of those, it's a deferred contract. So he's getting some of the money this year, and then the other 2 years it gets split up. So that's an interesting dynamic there. Apparently he turned down a couple 2-year contract offers. I think Atlanta was one of those teams, and Milwaukee was the other team. So he goes to Oakland. The Phillies made a nice little signing. Tony Watson, the left-handed pitcher. It's like a left-handed specialist. So I think he's he's going to make the team probably. Some of these signings right now are like minor league deals, but like if they make the team, it's going to be $2 or $3 million. And Chris Wilson also saying, I did see that today. The Nationals bringing in Jeffress. Pitcher. He had a nice season in Chicago. I saw those last year. He had under 2 ERA, 8 saves. A lot of these, it comes down though to like these analytics showed supported that he got a little bit lucky. He did give up some hard hit contact that was well defended in play by Chicago, making some plays for him. That his ERA, if it wasn't for that, would have been well higher. He didn't miss a whole lot of bats, but I mean, at this point in the offseason, getting somebody like that at least, he made the All-Star team 2 or 3 years ago with Milwaukee. That's still a good deal. Yeah, Brad Miller off the bench. Phillies had him, second half of 2019, and he looked pretty good. He gives you a little pop off the bench. He had a nice season in St. Louis last year for a while there and was actually getting some regular playing time. So that's a nice signing off the bench, strengthens your bench what they need. I still think it hurts that the DH is not happening this year because right now the Phillies are almost set up like an American League team, to be honest with you, because McCutchen, I don't know what you're going to do with him because his knees aren't going to allow you to play, more than 140 games. You're going to try to preserve him, but you were hoping if he couldn't play the field every day that you could DH him a little bit. Real Muto, you were able to DH him last year if he couldn't catch. When he played some first last year, and you were hoping Reese as well, and to have him not play first every day. So it's tough for teams that aren't great defensively, like the Phillies, or like at best you're hoping they're an average defensive team. You were hoping that DH was going to be in play, and it doesn't look like it. Obviously, that's going to happen at this point, so that's tough.
Right.
So I don't know how they're. I mean, Girardi's going to have his work cut out for him as far as he's going to have some days where he doesn't want to bench a guy, but he's going to have to rest him because you don't have the DH in play. So
I'm just looking over the depth chart while you're talking. The Philly, what they have on the Phillies website. A lot of this is really up in the air. I mean, according to them, they have Kingery playing second, and right now it has Segura at third, which I'm assuming Alec Bohm is going to be the third baseman. So where does Segura play? Does he play second? Then where's Kingery play? Does he play center? What are they going to do? They have Roman Quinn and Hazley in center field as well. I would assume if McCutchen doesn't play that much, they could put Quinn in left, Kingery in left. I guess Kingery is really going to be your super utility guy.
Yeah, I think that's their plan. And I think Segura will play mostly second. And Bohm will play third. I know they really, once again, somebody that's not, but you want to have his bat in the lineup, but somebody that's average at best at third base, probably better long-term as a first baseman, but you have Hoskins playing first, and you don't want to take his bat out of the lineup when he's hot. So they're kind of like in this mix and match game when it comes to trying to maintain a defensive line, alignment, because they don't have a lot of set guys at one position. We know Didi's going to play shortstop almost every day. We know Harper's playing right every day for the most part, and obviously JT catching and Knapp when he's not. But for the most part, you're. Center field is going to be a mix and match. Kingery, if he can hit, you want Kingery in lineup too, but, we'll see. And as you said, left field, if McCutchen doesn't play, who's going to play left field then? So I don't know. It's going to be there's going to be different alignments this year. It's not going to be a set. It's going to be a lot of different lineup cards Girardi's going to put out there throughout the year.
Just to give an answer to Chris's question, give me three Phillies that need to have a good season. I think Reese Hoskins is definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm. Coming off his injury.
Which guy's going to show up this year? The guy who finishes the year last year, he actually finished the last 10 or 12 games pretty decent. I don't know. I mean, JT is pretty solid doing what he does. If Segura is going to play a lot, I would assume they're going to be expecting a lot of him. But Kingery was also a very big disappointment last year.
Yeah, I think Kingery's going to have a bounce back. He's going to have his best season to this point because so far he hasn't proven that he can play every day.
Right.
And they were hoping at this point, you gave him that kind of that contract that bought away like his controllable years. He's not getting paid a ton. It's like $5 or $6 million, I think, but for somebody that really proved himself, you were hoping at this point he was going to live up a little bit to that contract, and he hasn't. Right. So it's certainly interesting.
Eflin can be another one. I mean, one of the other stars besides Nola and Wheeler are going to have to give something. And I don't know, they're saying Matt Moore, Chase Anderson, Vinny V again for whatever reason. Vinny V is like the Howie Roseman. They just don't want to get rid of him. It's just it's what it seems like. If anybody tells me that he's good, you got to go to Ancora because I don't see it.
I thought for sure they were just going to non-tender him, and that was going to be it. I don't know. I guess that goes to show you have that type of live arm, and if he can ever get one pitching coach that instill in him what he needs to do, and if it ever processes, I guess they figure he can be pretty good. Right. But it hasn't happened to this point. So, the 4 or 5 pitching coaches that I think he's been with. So, I think you probably just want him in a low leverage bullpen spot where maybe he can, give you some length in games that you need. You don't want to in games that the bullpen's kind of been spent from the day before, maybe you could pitch a couple innings so you can avoid that again. And, we know this day and age in baseball, pitchers aren't going more than 6 or 7 innings. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you're hoping that Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin, your top 3, can give you, at least 6 solid innings every game, if not 7.
Right.
The rest of the rotation, you're just hoping 5. Right now, Spencer Howard looks like, until proven otherwise, he looks like a 5-inning pitcher at the moment.
Yep.
And, Matt Moore, those type of guys, Chase Anderson, you're just hoping he gives you 5 solid innings, and then you turn it to the bullpen.
A lot of the division, and Chris makes a good point, the division is stacked.
Yes.
A lot of the teams made upgrades. I feel like the Phillies kind of stayed the part. They had to re-sign JT. They had to re-sign Didi. They kind of didn't make that big splash, which usually they do make that splash, and they kind of still are the same team. But I guess, I don't really know what to think of them this year. Like everybody's saying, 85 to 87 wins, I guess. I don't know. A 500 team, a little bit above it.
Yeah. The division is, the Braves obviously coming off the 3 division titles in a row. We all know that they should be still the favorite. Mets getting all the hype because of the spending some money, and they got Lindor, who's one of the top 5, top 8 players in the game. We know that.
Yeah, we think the bullpen is a lot better. We also thought the bullpen was going to be a lot better 2 years ago.
Well, naturally, you would have to think the bullpen will be better just from the sake that it was historically the worst bullpen in Major League Baseball history last year. So there's only one way to go up, and that's the theory we're taking.
Right.
They could have been the 20. They could have been the 2nd or 3rd worst bullpen last year and made the playoffs. All they needed to do was win one more game. I'm not saying they would have done much. I mean, they probably would have still lost to the Dodgers in the first round. But that's all they needed to do was win one more game. Nobody else wanted to make the playoffs,
right?
And they found a way to lose 8 of their last 9. So that's what happened. And
they need to win 1 or 2 of those games against Tampa Bay to get in, and they lost all 4.
They lost all 3. That was a 3-game series that they lost, and Tampa really didn't even need those games.
Right.
They were going to make the playoffs regardless. I think they were looking just to wrap up the top seed, if I remember that time. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. A lot of things have to break right, and in this division, every division game is going to. There's no cakewalk. Like we know, the Marlins have been a pain in their side for the last 5 or 6 years. Even when the Marlins were not a good team, and now we know the Marlins are a decent team. Even though it looks like right now they're projected to win only 70 games. I think they're going to win more than that. I mean, I'm not saying they're a playoff team maybe this year in a longer season. But I still think they're capable of being around a 500 team. And, they have obviously a young team that they're trying to continue to build to move forward. The Nationals, as Chris has said a couple of times, and I agree with him about Chris Wilson said about the Nationals made some very underrated, solid moves this offseason. Get Josh Bell. Play first base, and they traded for him off a down year. He had an electric, almost MVP like 2019 season. They added a bullpen closer that I would have liked, in Brad Hand. Archie Bradley's fine, but I would like Brad Hand, just for that lefty option, as the closer. So they bring him in, Jeffress today. So they're going to be back in that playoff mix, 85, 90 wins, for them, maybe even more, who knows. And it's probably top to bottom, the best division in baseball. I would have to think. I don't think there's a better one right now. The AL, just thinking, the AL East, right now is, the Yankees, Tampa, and Toronto up and coming, with the big signings they made this offseason, getting George Springer. Marcus Semien, bringing him in. And Boston's in a kind of still in a transition, so I don't think they're going to do much. The Central's got Twins and White Sox, two of the better teams. Indians are probably going to be taking they're probably on the decline and looking to rebuild. And in the West, it's probably the A's and the Astros. Central and the I'm just saying, yeah. I mean, the National League East, you can really make a case all 5 of those teams are going to be at the very least, 500 or more. So, yeah, it's a very solid division. And the Angels, yeah, with Trout, it's still amazing to this day that the guy has only, that team with him there now this is his 9th year, I think, in the league, that he has only made the playoffs 1 year. I mean,
and been the MVP, what, 3 times?
Three-time MVP. Yeah. Probably the other years he hasn't, at least second or third.
I think Miggy stole it from him 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, Donaldson was the 1 year, 2015, I think. Yeah, but it just seems like their one continued issue is their starting pitching. They still don't have enough starting pitching, even still with some of the Dylan Bundy. I know had a better year this year.
They got Greinke for that little time being, right, and they couldn't get anything going.
They just haven't had, Jared Weaver was at the end of his career, I think, when he was still there. They just haven't, Garrett Richards, I think injuries really hampered him. I think they were really banking on him being that ace. But other than that, that's been their struggle is their pitching. They bring in the coach, they bring in the manager, Madden and
Rendon.
Still the same. Yeah. Rendon. I mean, you have 2 of the top 5-6 players in the league, Rendon and Trout, and it doesn't matter if you don't have the pitching. So
right,
pitching still
can only
matters.
take you so far offensively. Paul, you're a cornucopia of knowledge.
Thank you very much. I couldn't see that. No, I can't. I'm getting prescription glasses. I'm waiting for him.
Chris, he can't stay healthy though. He didn't even pitch for the Braves last year more than what, a game?
Yeah, right? I don't want Hamels.
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's still. I'm honestly surprised he's still pitching. I'm surprised he didn't retire at this point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like
he's got a World Series MVP, right? He's got a World Series. He's good.
Got a World Series. And since he left the Phillies, it's been a struggle to stay healthy. Cubs was a struggle. Pitched 2 games to the Braves last year. It just hasn't been able to rekindle. Obviously, he had a couple good years in Texas when the Phillies traded him, but since then, I think he hasn't really had a really solid season. Probably since 2017, I guess. So it's been like at least 3 years since he's been good and healthy. So I think at this point it's done.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the actual spring training games itself start this week. Sunday, I think, the first games. So we'll see how things go. And we'll go from there. As far as the only guy left that seems like it's still a surprise that he's still on the free agent board is Jackie Bradley Jr. And there's about 6 teams interested in him. The Phillies is not one of them, but
I figured Dombrowski maybe would,
Yeah, people were speculating.
What's that telling you?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the Phillies are done. I mean, they got the 4th highest payroll still. People wanted to say that they didn't, they didn't want to spend any money this offseason, and thankfully that was just a bad thought process there because, as soon as they brought in Dombrowski, you knew that they were not going to just settle for what, they signed the 2 guys that they needed to the larger contracts in Real Muto and Didi and kind of filled in the rest of the pieces with a couple arms for their rotation, depth rotation pieces and a couple guys in the bullpen. So, other than that,
Sam Fold.
Sam Fold's the GM, yeah. He's the analytics guy.
Sure.
He is. And want to make a point that we are bringing back the diamond cutters for those that have been with the Sports Box for the last, at least the last 3 or 4 years and been loyal viewers, listeners of this of the network. Diamond cutters will be returning sometime in March, so stay tuned to that. Me and Brandon Gazzara. So we'll plug that now.
Excellent.
And Velardi, he probably won't want to come on.
No.
He already said that.
I don't know the answer to this.
What's that? What's the question?
I don't know. What's Suggs saying? I don't know what I don't know. The dog? I don't know. Yeah, it's my dog, Suggs.
Was it your dog?
Yeah, he's back there somewhere.
It's a tiny thing too.
Think about it. I don't really know I don't know the answer. Who's the last 20-game winner that the Phillies have had besides Roy Halladay? Halladay won 20 here, right? In a season?
He did 21.
Was that the Cy Young year?
Was that the what?
The Cy Young year?
Yeah, 22. It was the 2010 season. Yeah.
All right. So who was the last Phillies pitcher to win 20 games before that?
It had to be. Couldn't be. I mean, the obvious answer is Carlton, but it had to have been somebody before that, or after that, I guess. Schilling?
I don't know. I'm looking.
Pretty sure Schilling won. At least close to 20.
20?
And he was on some bad teams, so I don't know. I don't think it was a 93 year. It might have been after that, maybe 96 or 97, maybe 120.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Schilling's name is on here. Let me see. Won 17 games. I think the highest might have been 17.
For Schilling?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking. I'm reading an article real quick while we're doing this.
Chris Wilson saying John Denny.
Yeah, that's what Frank Lasasso just said too. I don't know. Cliff Lee never won 20 with he won 22 with the Indians, didn't he?
Yeah, he never won 20 with the Phillies.
Yeah, I think he won 22 with the Indians that year.
I think his high here was like 16 or 17.
Where's Sean Denny at?
It was ridiculous because there were some of those years where you felt like Lee and Hamels at least should have been close to that, but Hamels always was infamous for not getting run support when he was here.
Nola didn't get. I don't think he got close to 20 at all.
Nola's
16
like,
maybe.
Nola, I think his highest season was 16. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can he win 20? He has the potential to win 20. And I think they have a good enough offense now, finally, to back them. They were a top 5 offense last year, so it's going to be up to him. I mean, he's going to have to prove himself as far as later in seasons. He seems to have really good. He seems to be a really good month-to-month pitcher. One month he pitches tremendously, and then the next month he's average, and the next month he turns it up again. He's going to have to be a little more consistent. I know it's maybe a little bit nitpicking, but they need him to be the true ace finally. And if I think he's a very good 1B number 2 starter everywhere else. But for the Phillies, he needs to kind of be that guy. So we'll see if he can do it this year. And Chris is saying Wheeler is better than Nola. Wheeler has better stuff.
Yeah,
I think overall.
More power.
Yeah, better velocity.
Power different pitchers.
Nola did increase his velocity early on in his career. He was like 91, 92. He can get up to 94 now. So he did get a little more giddy up in his fastball. But with him, it's that electric. He's got that strikeout curve. He's got strikeout stuff like off speed pitches. So, and he's a good command pitcher. So, Wheeler not quite as much, but I think he's improved over the last couple of years as far as his command has gone. So, so we'll see. I mean, a lot of time to talk about baseball as we go through as we March 1 is next Monday. So. We'll get into obviously a lot more baseball. The season begins April 1st, so it's only about 5 weeks away now. So before you know it, baseball season will be here for good. I know the games will count, and just knock on wood that there's no COVID issues.
Hopefully they get through this, and apparently fans are going to be allowed back in, right?
Spring training, they're allowing 25%.
Florida,
you're talking about
Florida doesn't care.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. There hasn't been a word yet on that. I don't think they've said anything yet to the season ticket holders. I think they're kind of on hold with the arrangement as far as I think a best case scenario, you're looking at maybe 15% capacity.
Yep.
I mean, it helps that it's outdoor as opposed to indoor. So I guess there's a chance. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, John Suggs saying about, let's see, Lindor. He already made a comment today about, he obviously loved to stay a Met. But, they haven't begun negotiation. The Mets are all in to keep him long term. They'll give him, it's going to be over $200 million. It might be $250. Who knows? It might be even more. It might be selling it short. But he's going to get his large contract at the end of the year. So
yeah.
I can't believe the Tatis contract.
Yeah, it is.
That's a rare contract for somebody that just got in the major leagues. So
what is it? The last day that they'll be paying him, the last year will be the last year Bonilla gets his payoff. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that. That's hilarious. Yeah. So he got a 14-year, $330 million deal, but obviously they buy out like his controllable years in arbitration. I think they broke down the contract finally today. It's like a couple $1 million this year, but then it goes up to probably 30, 35 by the end of it. So I think it's a contract that escalates over time. Like he's not in that $35 million right away, but he'll eventually see it. I mean, the Padres have spent a lot of money, between Hosmer that 1 year, 3 years ago, and then
they got a lot of big. Those 3 contracts are huge that they have.
Between him, Machado, and now Tatis.
Hosmer got $135 million, I think.
Yeah,
it wasn't like it was a drop in the bucket.
No, and he hasn't really lived up to the contract, but
overpaid for that one.
Yeah, they overpaid, but I mean, it was like one of those things where that's not a destination, and they felt like I guess they could afford maybe to overpay and that get everything started. So then they bring Machado on board a couple years later, or the next year, I should say, and then now with this contract, they traded for Snell and Darvish this offseason, so they got the horses in the rotation to go along with Paddock and Lynn. Denellison, and they got a couple of guys. So I mean, it's going to be a heck of a race between the Dodgers and Padres now. Not only in the division but the whole National League. You have to think.
You have to think so.
Yeah, the Braves and and we'll see if the Mets can compete with that this year.
Let's see when we get to opening day what the injuries are and who looks like they're going to be contenders.
Yep, absolutely. And as you said, getting through this period of being down there in Florida and Arizona and, trying to stay healthy and safe. So, we'll see what happens. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and the good words and comments and questions tonight. Always obviously means the world and makes our show a better show when you guys are commenting and getting us something to build off of as far as the topics go. So this is, we like to have fun on this show. We appreciate the comments and questions, and like just Paul said, we do this to have fun. We're switching up some music, some graphics. We're trying to make everything a little bit better for you guys to enjoy it. So we appreciate you guys coming on every Monday and every other night. Cage My IQ coming up after us. Yep, 8:30.
We apparently have one of the Crazy Eights, Brent Fedek, coming on tomorrow night with on the Highly Opinionated Show with Brian T. and Mike Brady Galetta. So get ready for that.
Is that his new middle name?
Whatever.
All right. Thanks for everybody tonight for tuning in. We will see you next Monday here on the Sports Box as we turn the calendar to March 10. And that is it. So everybody have a great week ahead. Have a great night. Once again, Paul Macrie and Big V Mike Velardi. See you next time.
Thank you for watching the Unsportsmanlike Conduct Show on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hamilton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.